And welcome back, Rugby fans, to Rugby411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata. And originally, I wasn't going to do another video until I came back from my vacation in Japan. But I don't think we could skip the big news. And I decided to kind of do something a little interesting with this video. Not only talk about some good news, but definitely news that a lot of people have been asking me and kind of put my thoughts on it. I'll be honest with you guys, I've been very hesitant to do a video on this because there's just so many things up in the air, and the bottom line is I just don't know. That's pretty much the answer to part one. But we're going to do this video. We're going to do pretty much the crazy week in rugby for USA Rugby, the lows and the definite highs. So let's get on with the bad news first before we get to the really good news, shall we? So first of all, the state of Major League Rugby. It was huge news. I don't think if you're a huge rugby fan, you didn't miss the news of yet another team, unfortunately, biting the dust in Major League Rugby, and that would be the Houston SaberCats. That one, of course, kind of a surprising announcement by the Houston staff. Apparently, if you read a little bit into the details of what exactly happened, there was a lot of loss of money, even though Houston having a great season this season, making the playoffs and everything, but they are one of the original 7 of Major League Rugby, and yet for whatever reason, mounting debt in the organization, over $50 million lost. The management staff and the ownership just finally said that they had to call it. Also, a little bit within reading the lines, saying maybe a little lack of confidence in the direction of the organization, which we'll come back to that one in just a second. So, going over the timeline once again, we'll go into a little bit of details of what's been going on with Major League Rugby. First of all, of course, at the beginning of July, we had the big bombshell after all the little rumors and talks, is that the San Diego Legion, unfortunately, having the folding into RFCLA, which, yeah, is kind of an odd thing to form the newly developed California Legion, which, what does that mean exactly? Still, we don't know. I've talked to a lot of the players on both sides, San Diego and RFCLA, the team formerly known as RFCLA, and unfortunately, a lot of them don't really know what's going on either. So, when will we find out what exactly it means to have the California Legion? I'll let you know as soon as I know, but it's right now, mum's the word on everything with that. Then, literally later at the end of July 30th, NOLA Gold announcing their closing as a franchise. That one, not surprising to be honest. Saw this one coming way before the San Diego one. It was very apparent that the management was getting a little disgruntled with things. You can tell, being at the Gold Mine, a former baseball stadium, huge stadium, they had a lot of loyal fans, but definitely not filling that stadium, and it was very apparent. Word was they were trying to get another venue, a little bit smaller one, dedicated to NOLA Gold. Unfortunately, that fell through, and so management finally decided they just can't deal with it anymore either, so unfortunately, they fell. And then the surprising one, almost a month later in August, the Miami Sharks announced their closing after just a year into it, and 2 years into it. Year 2 was great for Miami, but again, management just deciding they can't take the mounting losses, and so they closed. And now, again, like I said, Houston SaberCats literally 2 weeks later announcing their closure. So who's left? Just a little reminder, we got Anthem Rugby Carolina, which I would assume is going to stay for the long haul just because that is supposed to be the development of USA Rugby. And again, they're being backed by World Rugby as well, which we'll get into that because of the big news that World Rugby announced a little bit before the announcement of Houston closing down. Then, of course, we have Old Glory DC, who's always been very tough and playing pretty good rugby. Seattle Seawolves, one of the original 7. We got the Chicago Hounds, who, they are looking really good attendance-wise, a very large fan base, but that doesn't always guarantee success either. The New England Free Jacks, your three-time reigning defending MLR champions. They're definitely sticking around. And then Utah, I'll be honest with you guys, there's a lot of talk about Utah possibly not sticking around. But right now, they are staying with us. And then the newly formed California Legion. Again, what does California Legion mean? I don't know. As a guy who works for RCLA, I'll let you know once I know what exactly the California Legion means and what does that mean as they're competing. So, a couple of things. First of all, as I mentioned before, there were originally 7 teams when Major League Rugby started about 8 years ago. And I forgot which owner made mention of this when NOLA announced their closing, that we started with 7. So at that time, they still had 10 teams in the league, but we started with 7. That seems to be the baseline for them. Well, 7 is here right now, and like I said, Utah kind of hanging by a thread if you listen to all the words behind the scenes. So again, not exactly the greatest thing to be backing on. Is that originally there were 7, so we're going back to 7. I mean, it's a huge drop. Within just an off season of a couple months, we lost 4 teams. We were at one point the biggest that the Major League Rugby ever was, and now we have quickly converted back to where we were at the very beginning. Is it just because we expanded too quickly? I think, again, it's just management of a rugby franchise. I get we're trying really hard to turn rugby into the next American football, but there's going to be a lot of growing pains. I keep trying to emphasize how long the National Football League has been around, how long Major League Baseball has been around, how long National Basketball Association has been around. They've been around for nearly a century. Major League Rugby has barely been around for a decade. And people forget that when NFL, Major League Baseball, there was a lot of franchises starting, closing. There was a lot of instability, a lot of growing pains. And even though we've seen the success of American football, a little bit with soccer, though soccer is struggling at certain points as well, I think people forget, because they look at all the success that the NFL have, that rugby should theoretically be that big of a success. I still feel it can be. I truly do, especially again with the Rugby World Cup coming around in 2031 here in the United States. I feel there can easily be that surge of popularity. And again, you see some of the markets like the New England Free Jacks in Chicago really being successful with what they're doing. And Seattle is really thriving as well. I just feel a lot of these owners got to realize, and again, it's their money, it's not mine, I get it, that you're going to have to be in it for the long run, and you're going to have to take a lot of losses before we see some success. Now, also, again, the rumblings, as before what I mentioned with Houston, that maybe not agreeing with the way that this league is going, what decisions are being made, that I can't really talk about. But again, that doesn't bode very well for the future of our sport, because how does that entice other future franchise owners from wanting to invest in something that seems right now to be incredibly shaky and non-compliant or non-successful? And again, does this mean Major League Rugby will shut down? Again, the baseline seems to be 7. Can they survive with 6? Yeah, they can survive with 6 teams. Will it be super successful on 6 teams? Definitely not. It does need to expand more. It needs to be more of a nationwide sport than a localized sport. And just having 6 teams, even with a couple and some, and with one in a very, very big market, you're going to have to do more than just that. Now, again, should Major League Rugby close? That for sure, definitely not. I think it's really understandable when you look at as much criticism as Japan 1 League got It's very helpful for the Japanese development of rugby players local. Obviously, Super Rugby in Australia and New Zealand is very successful. Obviously, you got Premiership and all the other ones in rugby-centric countries doing really, really good for the development of their players. Yes, I know there's always talk about having Major League Rugby merge into something like the Super Rugby Americas, the South American local league, or, again, all that talk about possibly having a team play in Super Rugby with New Zealand and Australia, which, again, is not the worst idea. Is it feasible with the travel and the distance? I don't think so. But I think in the end, you need this, especially as we're going into the 2027 Rugby World Cup, because, again, so many of our players are getting so much development. And to be honest, I feel a lot of these players are also, you see a lot of, if you're paying attention to rugby, you're hearing a lot of off-season movement where a lot of these players are getting chances to play in Europe, in Australia, in New Zealand, in those localized leagues like Shoot Shield and Premiership because of what they're doing with Major League Rugby. It is getting a lot of players' attention and developing them further so that once they start to get that success there, like an AJ McGinty, then they can bring that back as they start to become Eagles players. So you need Major League Rugby. That's the bottom line. Now, how does Major League Rugby continue to survive in the future? Well, obviously, money would help, which now, of course, we had that big announcement just days before Houston closed of World Rugby donating $250 to $270 million. I'm sorry, $25 million to $27 million over 5 years to USA Rugby in preparation for, I'm sorry, it is $250 to $270 million over the next 5 years in preparation for the Rugby World Cup and the development of localized rugby players. That's huge. Now, you're maybe asking, well, if we're getting that money, how come Houston's shut down? That I can't answer. But if we are getting that influx of money, it really is going to be something that we'll have to watch out for with Major League Rugby. What are they doing with that money? And where is it going to help stabilize Major League Rugby? Because that's first and foremost where the money needs to go to keep these franchises alive, to keep the league alive, and to help it grow. Because obviously, you need money to sustain these franchises, and you need these franchises to continue growing, to give other players opportunities, and to continue the competition and the growth and the popularity of the league. Did it come a little too late? Probably did, obviously, because we just lost a bunch of teams. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping as we get ready for 2026, year 9 of Major League Rugby, that that money will help continue the growth of this league, and at least we can get some sort of understanding of where this league is going as, again, we head towards the Rugby World Cup. But again, are we going to have a 2026 season? What does this mean for Major League Rugby? As I mentioned at the very beginning, ultimately, I don't know. As a rugby fan, I'm hoping in all honesty of positivity that we are going to succeed, that money is going to help the league continue, and it will continue growing. Hopefully, we'll get these franchises back. The odd thing is that with every franchise closing, there is always just the wording that we're not taking part in the 2026 season. Doesn't necessarily mean they're closing their doors. Now, obviously, I'm being super optimistic about it. But, hey, maybe that's what that means. That they're closing just now. Once the money starts to come in from World Rugby, new ownerships come in, those franchises maybe will restart. Just like, again, how what was once RFCLA used to be Rugby Atlanta, move that franchise over to a new one. It doesn't necessarily mean we can't have Houston pop up somewhere else, Miami pop up somewhere else, and so on and so forth. That is a possibility. Maybe we'll have a franchise regrow somewhere. Maybe Dallas will come back. I mean, that would be great. Texas is a great market. So, again, that's why I didn't really make a video, because I don't have the answers for sure. But that's just where we are going into the off-season as we get ready for 2026. Obviously, we probably won't know too much about it until December, because that's usually around the time, actually probably more January, February, because that's when we start to hear word about the upcoming season. Now, enough doom and gloom. let's go to the bigger positive news. USA qualified for the Rugby World Cup. Congratulations, boys. Good, strong game against a very game Samoa, 29-13 during the Pacific Nations tournament. If you haven't seen that game again, you can watch it live. You can watch it on demand on Paramount Plus. You can watch the finals of the Pacific Nations Cup between Japan and Fiji, a rematch of last year's final. And again, the game was really good. USA playing some amazing defense and being very aggressive at the start. Samoa had a lot of handling errors, but a lot of those handling errors were simply because USA were always quick to get to the ball, forcing Samoa to have to second guess what they're doing with the ball, causing a lot of knock-ons. There was a lot of jackling from the USA. USA has prided themselves on that, which has been great. Unfortunately, Chris Hilsenbeck got an early HIA. He was out for the rest of the game, so Luke Carty had to come in for kicking duties. Samoa had a lot of time in the USA's 22, but again, did not score anything because of USA's staunch defense. A unfortunate late yellow card by Pono Davis right at the end of the first half led into the second half where Samoa was able to score. So the score was Samoa in the lead until Luke Carty was able to get a try. It was a tough day at the office for Luke Carty, usually very reliable off the tee. I'm a big fan of Luke Carty, his brother Jack, who plays for Premiership. Luke Carty, former Guillotines player, great off the tee, except for today when he was just 1 for 4 off of the tee. But he scores a try, and then to get the lead to be even further by 9 points, the new Captain America, Jason Dahm of, I think he might still be of California Legion, was able to fight for a try, literally fighting for a try. And then USA was able to put it away with a try by Caleb Geiger. As I mentioned before, basically USA just outpaced Samoa. Samoa just fell apart at the end, and USA was able to walk away with a convincing victory, 29-13. It wasn't an easy game, but a win is a win, and USA are now heading to the 2027 Rugby World Cup in Australia. They don't have to worry about fighting against Chile to qualify or to go through all those qualification processes. Samoa, obviously, great game for you guys. Good luck against Chile this coming weekend. Winner of that goes automatically into the Rugby World Cup. The loser will have to go into the final repechage tournament. As I explained in my prior video, USA doesn't have to worry about that. So, what does that mean for our boys? Well, they have 2 matches left in the year right now. November 1st, they're going off to Scotland to take on a very tough Scotland team. And then 2 weeks after that, November 15th, somewhere in Georgia, they'll be playing a always game Georgian team. 2 really great matches to gain some experience for the United States. Whether or not they'll have one more match during the fall international window remains to be seen. Obviously, they had to keep their card open because of the possibility that they would have to be fighting with all these qualifications. But now that the dust is settled, maybe they'll get a 3rd match. We'll see. But right now, November 1st against Scotland, November 15th against Georgia. And then we won't know where or who they're playing in what pool until December. That's when they'll make the pool announcements for the Rugby World Cup in 2027. And then obviously after that, 26 is all about preparing the boys for that tournament. So, and then of course, hopefully we'll learn by that point the fate of Major League Rugby. So, all right, so that's my video. Try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. Thank you very much as always for watching. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about the fate of Major League Rugby? Do you want Major League Rugby to survive? Obviously, I'm assuming a lot of you do, but there's been a lot of negativity in the social media market of rugby fans. So hopefully, we'll see some positive development. And again, congratulations to USA Rugby for making it to the Rugby World Cup. Great job, boys. Always knew you guys could do it. And thank you very much, as always, for watching my video. I appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys on the pitch. Great job, USA.